Speak for 5 minutes and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection. Gentlemen, suspend. The chair will remind members of the gallery that they are not to act in a manner of approval or disapproval with the proceedings. The gentleman from Virginia may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it has become abundantly clear that the Internal Revenue Code is no longer working in a fair manner for our nation's citizens. Many Americans look at the dim state of our economy and the billions of their tax dollars that are being given to private businesses, and they want to know why their tax code is so unfair. The tax code Americans are forced to comply with discourages savings and investment and is impossibly complex. It has become all too clear that the current code is broken beyond repair and cannot be fixed, so we must start over. For this reason, I rise today to reintroduce the Tax Code Termination Act. This bipartisan legislation, which I have introduced with nearly 70 co-sponsors, will accomplish two goals. It will abolish the Internal Revenue Code by December 31, 2012, and call on Congress to approve a new federal tax system by July of that same year. At a time when Americans devote a total of 7 billion hours each year to comply with the tax code, we need tax simplification. A few years ago, Money Magazine asked 50 professional tax preparers to file a return for a fictional family. No one came up with the same tax total, nor did any of the preparers calculate what Money Magazine thought was the correct federal income tax. Results varied by thousands of dollars. The need for tax simplification is further highlighted by the tax problems experienced by some of President Obama's cabinet nominees. These are highly educated individuals, some of whom claim specialized knowledge of the tax code, and one of whom will actually be in charge of ensuring compliance with the tax code, Treasury Secretary Geithner. And even they cannot correctly file their taxes. In addition, in today's Politico, there was an article detailing the problems that members of the Senate have in filing and complying with the tax code. In fact, the title is, quote, "For senators, tax questions are taxing," end quote. If it is this hard for government officials, including those who write and enforce the tax code, to comply with the code, then imagine what it is like for the average American family to comply with it. All Americans find the tax code, well, taxing. While almost every member would recognize that our tax code is no longer working in a fair manner for Americans, nothing has been done to create a more equitable tax code. Congress won't act on fundamental tax reform unless it is forced to do so. My bill will force Congress to finally debate and address fundamental tax reform. Once this bill becomes law, today's oppressive tax code would survive for only 4 more years, at which time it would expire and be replaced by a new tax code that would be determined by Congress, the President, and the American people. This legislation will allow us as a nation to collectively decide what the new tax system should look like. Having a date certain to end the current tax code will force the issue to the top of the national agenda. Although many questions remain about the best way to reform our tax system, I am certain that if Congress is forced to address the issue, we can create a tax code that is simpler, fairer, and better for our economy than the one we are forced to comply with today. Whichever tax system is adopted, the key ingredients should be a low rate for all Americans, tax relief for working people, protection of the rights of taxpayers and reduction in tax collection abuses, promotion of savings and investment, and encouragement of economic growth and job creation. Taxes may be unavoidable, but they don't have to be unfair and overcomplicated. Just like other programs that require reauthorization, the tax code must be reviewed to examine whether it is fulfilling its intended purpose, and then Congress must make any changes that are necessary. America's future depends on overcoming the handicap of the current tax code. There is a widespread consensus that the current system is broken, and keeping it is not in America's best interest. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation and end the broken tax system that exists today.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Mr. DeFazio of Oregon. For the purpose is the gentleman from New York rise.